Most people think Bitcoin started with code. It didn't. It started with a warning. Buried inside Bitcoin's first block, the Genesis block, is a line that still hits harder today than it did in 2009. The Times 03/Jan/2009 Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks. That was not random. That was not decoration. That was not an Easter egg for nerds. That was the opening shot. Because Bitcoin was not born during peace. It was born in the shadow of a financial system breaking in public. And if you understand why that sentence was placed inside the first block ever mined, you understand something most people still miss. Bitcoin was never just about making money. It was about exposing what money had become. Here's the part almost nobody talks about. Satoshi could have launched Bitcoin silently. No message, no statement, no political signal. Just code. But instead, he embedded a newspaper headline about bank bailouts directly into the foundation of the network. That means the first thing Bitcoin says is not, "Number go up." The first thing Bitcoin says is, look at the system you trust. Look at who gets rescued. Look at who pays for it. And that changes everything. Because when banks fail, they don't always die. Sometimes they get saved. Sometimes they get liquidity. Sometimes they get extraordinary help. Sometimes the rules bend for the people closest to the money printer. But regular people, they get inflation. They get weaker purchasing power. They get told to be patient. They get told the system is stabilizing. They get told this is necessary. That is the hidden tension inside Bitcoin's first block. Not just bank failure, moral failure. The message was simple. If money can be rewritten to save the powerful, then money is no longer neutral. And if money is not neutral, then your time is not protected. That is what most people still do not understand. Money is not just paper. Money is stored life. It is your mornings, your stress, your labor, your youth, your missed weekends, your energy turned into a number. So when the monetary system can be stretched, diluted, or redirected to absorb the mistakes of insiders, what is really being stolen is not only value. It is time. That's why the Genesis block matters. It is not famous because it was first. It is famous because it explained the disease before offering the cure. And the disease was not simply inflation. It was not simply debt. It was not simply central banking. It was deeper than that. It was the realization that modern money had become political, selective, fragile, elastic for the top, rigid for everyone else. That single newspaper line captured an entire era. A world where banks could take reckless risks, implode, and still stand close enough to power to survive. A world where failure was socialized. A world where ordinary savers followed the rules and still got punished slowly. That's why the line had to be there. Because Bitcoin was not introduced as a product. It was introduced as a contrast. Not this, something else. Not trust the institution, trust the protocol. Not rescue by decree. Rules without rulers. Not unlimited discretion. Fixed supply. And that is where the hidden message gets even more powerful. A lot of people hear the Genesis block headline and think it was just anti-bank anger. That is too small. The deeper message is about credibility. In the old system, credibility comes from authority, from central banks, from governments, from giant institutions telling you the system is sound. In Bitcoin, credibility comes from constraints. No one can print more than the rules allow. No one can politically decide there should be 25 million Bitcoin instead of 21 million. No one gets emergency dilution because they are systemically important. That is a civilizational shift. Bitcoin took the most sensitive part of society, money, and moved trust away from human promises and into transparent rules. That is why the first block needed a message. Because Bitcoin was not only solving a technical problem, it was answering a moral one. Who should control the measuring stick? The people who benefit from changing it, or a system that refuses to? And once you see that, you start to understand why Bitcoin feels so different from everything else. It is not only an asset, it is a referendum on the old world. That's also why the timing mattered. The embedded headline was dated January 3rd, 2009, the same date associated with Bitcoin's Genesis block. Many people interpret that as more than a timestamp. Yes, it proves the block was created no earlier than that date, but it also freezes the birth of Bitcoin inside a moment of financial distrust. It ties the network's origin to a real-world crisis, not an abstract theory. And here is another detail that makes the story even darker. The first 50 Bitcoin in the Genesis block are widely known as unspendable due to how that block exists in the code. Think about that. The system begins with a reward that cannot really be used. That feels symbolic. Not a founder cash out. Not a victory lap. Not watch me get rich first. Instead, the beginning feels almost sacrificial, as if the first block was not meant to enrich the creator, but to anchor the idea. That matters because Bitcoin's origin is radically different from the origin story of most modern financial products. No marketing launch, no venture capital roadshow, no executive team on CNBC, no bailout backstop, no insider allocation speech, just a message, a block, a network, and a challenge. Can money exist without permission? Can value be stored without political leakage? Can the rules apply equally to everyone? That is why the first block still matters, because the hidden message is not old. It is permanent. Every time another crisis hits, every time another institution gets rescued, every time ordinary people work harder but feel poorer, that line comes back to life. Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks. It reads less like history and more like a mirror. And maybe that is the real genius of Satoshi. He did not write a manifesto inside the first block. He wrote a headline. Cold, simple, undeniable. A message from the old system, preserved forever inside the birth of the new one. No long speech, just one line that says, "This is the world Bitcoin came from. Never forget why it had to exist." So the next time someone tells you Bitcoin is just speculation, just crime, just volatility, just hype, ask them a harder question. Why would the creator of a new monetary network choose the very first block to reference a bank bailout? Because Bitcoin was not created to entertain the system. It was created because the system revealed itself. And once you see that, the Genesis block stops looking like the beginning of a coin. It starts looking like the beginning of an argument about power, about fairness, about who gets saved, about who gets diluted, about whether your life should be measured in money that can be changed when the right people are in trouble. That is the hidden message inside Bitcoin's first block. Not just that banks were failing, but that the money itself had become a political instrument. Bitcoin was the response. And maybe the warning is even more relevant now than it was in 2009. Because once money loses neutrality, everything priced in that money becomes unstable. Savings, wages, housing, retirement, the future itself. That is why the first block still speaks. And if you can hear what it is saying, you stop asking, "Why does Bitcoin matter?" And you start asking the more dangerous question, what happens to society when the measuring stick cannot be trusted?